Hello everybody to the public colloquium in the Angewandte Innovation Laboratory. The public colloquium is a part of the PhD process, of the PhD program in the Artistic Research PhD program at the University of Applied Arts. The purpose of the public colloquium is to give the candidates the opportunity to present their current research, their planned future activities, or especially the state of the moment in their practice. To give this presentation a slot of attention and also in a shared space of attention that we're in now in this very context. You can find the program, the schedule of the whole event lying around and also online as a download option, and you can find artifacts, positions all around scattered in this very space of the Angewandte Innovation Laboratory. And as close as you stay with us for those 2 days, as better you learn to understand what's happening, and especially if you follow the presentations, you learn to understand or to approach the certain research projects conducted by the individual researcher candidates at the PhD program. My name is Alexander Damianisch. I'm kind of the coordinator of the Zentrum Fokus Forschung activities, and one of those activities is especially the PhD program. And to my left, it's Brigitte Jahrmann. She is a professor in the PhD program. Brigitte.
I only want to add, we introduced already yesterday the program, but you are all, those of you who are from the Colloquium know already, we have a discourse culture established, so you are all welcome to have a participatory aspect in the presentations. The Q&A session that will follow is very important also for the candidates, so please participate also in the discourse and feedback moment that is a part of our research process. Yeah, we will afterwards also have like a formal talk together where we start questioning and answering. That's why we were setting up in this interesting TV show setup here next to the candidate to feel more relaxed. It's symbolically, I know, but and then we open the discourse to everybody. So thank you.
So that's about the plan, and that will be the future. And now it's for our first dear candidate. It's Michael Kargl on the topic of performative materiality. And he announced or described his presentation connected to his practice as playing with the material, becoming material. Michael, if you're ready, then we are.
Okay, thank you. Good morning everybody to this very first session here today. Since it's a bit early for me, I think I'll start slowly, or at least I'll try to. As Alexander said before, my name is Michael Kargl. I'm in my second year of the studies here, and the title of my PhD research project is Performative Materiality. And this second year was more or less for me dedicated to the questions around what material in an artistic say production process or an artistic means is essentially. So the first question for me was what is the material in a work of art or of a work of art? I tried to get closer to this question by doing a simple research. What you see here is an older work of mine depicted in a catalog. It's from a few years ago. And if you look closer, there's this description of the artwork, where it says where the title is written, the date of production or the year of production, the material dimensions, and further information. So in this case, you see here it's a Digitaldruck, digital print in English. And in this case, it was simply a print of ink on paper. So we have two materials here, ink and paper. Looking at the work in its more, so to say, natural environment, not in a catalog, one recognizes that there is a frame where this print is inside. So the question to me now was, is this frame also part of the work? Is this also a material that belongs to the artwork? And I would argue yes, because if you don't have a frame, you wouldn't be able to show it in the way I would like to show it, or I would like you to see it that way. And so we have a frame here, which means that the material is now ink, paper, and frame. Let's get a little bit closer. The frame itself, as you can see, is made of wood, painted wood, and we also have some glass here. So if we extend this list, we have ink, paper, wood, paint, glass. Okay. Unfortunately, this frame also has a backside. So there are even more materials. The list would be now ink, paper, wood, paint, glass, tape, glue. And now the question is, if I fix it to a wall, is the wall also a part of the material of the artwork? And what about, for example, about the light? Yeah. Without light, you wouldn't be able to look at it. You wouldn't be able to see it. So are these all materials? Are these materials all part of the artwork? Let's have a look at another piece. This is a picture of a performance I did in my studio last year, and I tried to list the materials quickly, which you see on the right-hand side. It's cardboard, chalk, paint, tape, floor, body, time, movement, sound, and probably many, many others I didn't list here. So a complete list of only two artworks would be, or more or less complete. Now ink, paper, wood, paint, glass, tape, glue, wall, light, cardboard, chalk, paint, floor, body, time, movement, sound. Okay, so the attempt of making lists of writing down the materials artworks consist of would be probably an endless attempt to do, and in the end probably also very boring. So making a complete list would be probably impossible. So in the end, I didn't have really useful results, useful answers to this question, but I found out a nice method. The method is just listing things. And the question for me now was, how could I use, this method for the production of artworks? One attempt was this. I took this book. This book is more or less a printout of a website which shows an ongoing research process of a colleague of mine, Franz Thalmeier, and me. And it consists only of pictures of artworks many, many people made. Like, as you can see here, they're just works of art in there. And I took this book and wrote a list of all the materials used in these artworks, as far as I can see or as I can interpret in a way. And afterwards I took this list and made a generator that always pairs two of these materials by random. So it's basically a computer that endlessly writes pairings of materials, like as you see here, tiles and books, color gradients and neon tubes, stones and iron bars, and it runs through all the time. Starting with this generator, I became also a generator for artworks. So these are some results here. For example, on the left side, you see the pairing of glass and tension belts, and behind this, the pairing of wall and color gradient, which was these things were installed here in the IL in the next room in an exhibition. Or on the right-hand side, you have the combination of body and wood box, or on the bottom, fluorescent tube and wooden planks, and so on. So basically, this is a generator for artworks I made. But still, I wanted to have kind of answers to my questions, not in a way of making things or producing art, but also in a more reflective way. So I tried to reframe the question to make it a little bit more general, so to say. The question now was, what is the material of art? So thinking about material in art in general, and reading a lot about it, I stumbled upon a thinker quite early, a famous thinker, Aristotle, who was dividing the world or the things basically into matter and form. Of course, this is a very simplified version of the philosophy of Aristotle, but I think it makes a point for this research. So he divided basically everything into matter and form, but he also encountered quite early a problem there, because matter can itself be divided into matter and form. For instance, bricks are made of clay, shaped into cuboid blocks. Again, clay has its own matter, mud, say, and so on. Eventually, if one pursues this hierarchy of matter far enough downwards, Aristotle believes that one will reach the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. So today I would argue that if we follow this hierarchy, that at the end there wouldn't be the four elements anymore, but probably some particles and waves that have energy. But my problem now was that all these particles and waves are the same, no matter if they are in this book, are in this table, or if they are in an artwork. So again, I didn't find kind of useful answer to my question. But again, I found a nice method, the method of disassembling and abstraction in this process. So what I did was I again employed this, or tried to employ these methods. And again made a book. This time, this book was about making a book. Yeah, it's a book about the process of making a book. It's an attempt to disassemble basically the whole process. And by this also find out or think about the materials used for the book production. So what you see in this book is, for example, a picture like this. This is a photo of the bed where I had lots of ideas for this book, or a view of the window where I often stood and contemplated these ideas. also what you have in there is, for example, some texts where the more important things are, where you can see the more important sentences and the rest is blacked out, and stuff like this. Also, the book itself became kind of object that has to do that has a connection with the reader, because the reader is also a part of the book, of course. So you have it has 4 chapters, and the first chapter is to read the usual way, the second chapter you have to read that way, the third chapter that way, and the fourth chapter that way. So yeah, basically that was the disassembling of the process of making a book. And one of the things methods or processes I employed for the book was also the disassembling on a more theoretical level, just to think about the book. What is the book? I just collected thoughts with diagrams and drawings, and always during this process I found out that there are so many things there, what a book is or what a book could be, and these things, as they grew over time, or as the amount of them grew over time, they all got closer and closer together. So in the end it was a manifestation, or this drawing was just a huge mess. So it manifested it to basically, sorry. In the end it grew together to what it is, a book. Okay, but still I didn't get an answer to my question on a theoretical level. So I tried to reframe the question again. What is material? To make it more simple. Rereading some texts and books, I found again a nice text by Tim Ingold. Tim Ingold is one of the quite famous figures in this materiality discourses. And he wrote in a sentence, or in a paper, that I mean by materials the stuff that things are made of. That was a quite interesting thing to me, because he was talking about the things that are made, not the stuff that things consist of, for example, as we would probably more say in German. So I took this hint seriously and tried to integrate the making into my considerations. So how does this work? An example, if I try to integrate the making in a list of materials of what this lecture consists of, for example. So I would have the materials like a projector, the computer, the cables, the microphone, amplifiers, maybe the building, my voice, the body, the words. But also I have here my social and economic status. Without it, I wouldn't be able to, sit here to talk about these things. And if I'm talking about this status, I have to take into account some things that happened in the past. For example, texts I read, my previous life, or even things that are not really connected to me personally, like the invention of electricity. Without it, we wouldn't be able to see this. So all this now is in this lecture. Everything is integrated in this. And the more interesting point is that if all these elements wouldn't have didn't come together exactly as they did, I wouldn't sit here. So all these elements relate in a very, very specific way. And if they wouldn't do this, probably this talk wouldn't happen now, or whatever. Yeah. So if I try to think about this, or I thought about this a little bit more, so in the end I would say, or I could argue that material is more a process. Yeah. Material is a process, consists of relations. Material is a process that yields results, so to say, or saying it differently, material is a process, it performs. So this time I had, to me, kind of useful answer to this question, but also I found a useful method, the method of performing. Performing can also be seen as a process that is able to make the making visible, the making in the sense of the quote before. It is a kind of interaction that yields visible results. So I try to make the making visible in performances. For example, this is me interacting with a floor, or more or less with the holes and broken parts of the floor, which in the end the result of this interaction was basically a drawing. Then another interaction in my studio with a blackboard. I taped some chalk to my hands and tried to make marks on the blackboard, just to see what happens when I bodily interact with this thing. Or a very recent example. This was a collaboration with dancer and choreographer Alberto Franceschini, where we tried to find out a little bit more about the properties of this space we were working in, and of what it means to move in this space. Okay, during my studies this year, basically this was what I did, and during this process I found a few more areas where which I think I'll interact with in the upcoming year. So this is a kind of a forecast. I identified a few terms, so to say, I will think about, which is time, the becoming of material, borders, and instability and restlessness. So basically, that's it. Thank you.